Hello, welcome to Classical Greek Latin. This is the Latin lesson number 7 for chapter 6 in your Wheelock, and we are going to be talking about sum and possum today, which means sum is I am, and then possum is I am able. But we're going to be talking about those in the future and imperfect. And then also we're going to cover the complementary infinitive, which is pretty straightforward. Overall, this is a pretty easy lesson. The hardest part about Latin at this point is just to keep up with all the vocabulary, and you'll notice that if you're not keeping up with that, it becomes a bit overwhelming because it just accumulates. So my name is Josh. I'm the teacher for this course. So let's go ahead and get started here, and I'll just give you basically some memorization techniques to consider here. All right, so we have the future and imperfect. So future, I will be, and then the imperfect, I was, all right, or you were, or we were. All right, so just for review, let's look at the present form of sum. So I'll write that out for you real quick, just as a refresher. All right, so we're going to have first, second, third person. Let me zoom in a bit for you there. There you go. And then you have, so this is going to be singular. And then you have first, second, third person for the plural. Okay, so we have sum, es, est, sumus, estis, and then sunt. Okay, so that is present tense. So I am, you are, he, she, it was, or is, excuse me. We are, you all are, they are. All right, so that's just for context. So let's take a look now. Let's do the future first. So we will write this out again. First, second, third, singular, but we're doing the future here. All right, and then we're going to do the plural over here as always. And first, second, third. All right, so I'm going to read this for you. So it's ero, so ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, uruns. So you may remember from the future tense of a verb, you would expect that I to be there in the third person plural, but it changes to a you because of the nasal there, in my opinion. So let me go ahead and write out. You basically already know these endings. If you recall, I'll write out the future endings for a regular verb. So we have bo, bis, beat, bimus, betis, and then buns. Okay? So you notice a pattern here. The O, is, eat, imus, itis, und. So really, the only new thing here that you're learning is that the ER, right? That's the only thing that you're really learning. So just keep that in mind when you're memorizing this. So it is pretty straightforward, pretty easy, but if you remember its connection to the future tense for regular verbs, right? So we have, just to let you see it on a real verb, so laudabo, right? And then it would be laudabis, laudabit, and so on, right? So just a little bit of review there. So you'd have it in the singular and the plural forms. Okay, so that's ero. So I will be, you will be. Let me get this back into focus for us. So we have I will be, you will be, he will be, or she will be, or it will be. And then we all will be, you all will be, they will be. All right, so that's the future. Let's take a look now at the imperfect. So we'll do the same thing as always. First, second, third person, singular, first, second, third person, plural. Mark these singular and plural. And now we're going to do the imperfect. So I abbreviate just IMPERF, again, to distinguish that from the imperative. Okay? So if you're thinking ahead, you can anticipate the advice I'm going to give you. This is very similar to the imperfect endings for the verbs, right? So I'll put those in first. So we have bomb, boss, bot. Now remember, these are verbal endings for regular verbs. So we'd have like lauda, bomb, right? So don't confuse this with sum or eram. I'm just doing this to help you make associations so that the memorization process is easier, right? Then we have bamus, batis, and then bont, right? And then our sample word, if we were to say laudo, like we did up here, loud, it would be loud, da, bomb, and then bas, bot, bamus, batis, bont, and so on, right? So you'd have the singular, and then you'd have the plural, right? So that's what we know already. So with here, again, the only thing we're adding that's new is So I'll write that just so you can think of it in these terms. Er. Okay? And now we're just going to eram. So I was. Eras. You were. Erat. He, she, it was. Eramus. We were. Eratis. You all were. Erant. They were. Okay? Now note that there on the third person plural doesn't change. Right? So is a pretty strong vowel. It's your mouth is wide open, your tongue is flat for that vowel. It's when you get u and e, that's the one that likes to change on you. Okay? But this is going to be the same, erant. All right? So again, we already know bam, bas, bat, bamus, batis, bant. We're basically taking the am, as, at, amus, atis, ant, and adding it to the er, right? And that gives us the imperfect of the verb to be sum, okay? Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and memorize those, and then, and keep up with your vocab. But that's pretty much this chapter. Let's look at Possum. Well, that's the bulk of this chapter. Possum is very simple also. Okay, so Possum, posse, potui, that's how it appears in the dictionary, right? Just like you would have laudo, laudare, laudavi, laudatus in the dictionary for laudo, right? Possum, posse, potui is how this would appear in the dictionary. Okay, so you have your first person singular present tense, I am able, okay? And then you have to be able, and then you have the perfect I have been able, right? We won't worry about that right now. So posse is the infinitive. So let's talk about this a little bit. Basically, this word is made up of two words. It's made up of sum, right? So sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Combined, it's a compound word with the Latin word, where do they have it here? Pot. So potsum is, okay, it's an improper form. They're just showing you how it combines. That's why they have the asterisk there, to show you that this is not a real word. But this is where possum, which is the real word, comes from. So it is a combination of, there it is. Here we go. Pot, which means ability, power, you're capable, all right? They give you some definitions here, plus sum, all right? So this is just a basic lesson in phonetics. So let me show you what's happening here, okay? So we're going to do the present, the future, and the imperfect with possum. That may sound like a lot, but if you know the rules of Phonetics, it's very straightforward and very easy. So let me show you what I mean. Okay. So you have the word pot. You have the word pot, which means power, ability, able, capable, right? And then you're going to add plus sign there, sum. Okay. Now, if you think of T here, you think about where that's pronounced in the mouth, the tip of your tongue is behind your top teeth. That is a dental. Dental means teeth, of course. So if you have, go ahead and make the S sound, okay? That is, they call it a sibilant. It just means that you're blowing air between the tip of your tongue and your teeth. So S technically could be called a dental also. So what's happening here is when that T comes into contact, proximity in your mouth with that S, that T is going to change to an S for ease of pronunciation, right? So if you have potsum, potsum, it's almost impossible. So our equation here, it's going to end up like this, possum, right? So the T becomes an S. It's almost impossible to maintain that T as a T while also trying to pronounce that S immediately afterward. So that's what happens, right? That's all that's going on there. And you'll note this on page 49. Slide over here. So on page 49, that's where we're going right now. All right, so they have everything spelled out for us very nicely for us, but it looks like a random, you have post here, post, and post, right? So that seems like a lot to memorize, but let's just think about this, okay? So we have, let's do our chart here for verbs, first, second, third person, singular, first, second, third person, plural, and we'll do the present, okay? And this is of sum. We're going to say polt sum, right? So we want to say I am able, you are able, he is able, we are able, you all are able, they are able, right? So let's start out with just our regular to be verb, right? So I am, okay, and then we have es, and you have est, and then over here in the plural you're going to have sumus, you're going to have estis, and you're going to have sunt. Okay, so now let's just take the word pot and we're going to add it on to everything. Okay, so we're just literally just going to write it in here. Okay, pot, 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 pot. Right? You say it enough times, it sounds weird. Okay. So now let's add these together, right? Put a little plus sign here because we're adding them together. That's not a T. Don't get confused. It's just a plus sign, right? So I'm showing that we're combining these words together. So let's look here. We have a dental combining with a sibilant or also a dental. So we're going to have, let's see, where should I write this? So we're going to have, oh, I'll just do it down here. Write this out again. We're going to have possum. Okay? So that potsum becomes possum because of rules of phonetics, right? Pot es, you have a dental followed by a vowel, which is totally cool. That's fine. The mouth is fine with that. So it's going to stay as is. And then if you look at your chart on page 49, lo and behold, it is pot es. Okay, again, third person singular, pot est. Again, dental consonant coming followed by a vowel. That's totally okay with the human mouth. So we're going to keep that. Pot est. Okay. So you see, once you know the rules of phonetics, there's a lot less memorization involved. All right, now here you have your dental. I realize at this point I'm being somewhat redundant, but bear with me. You have a dental here, and then a sibilant dental S, and they're going to combine for, you guessed it, possumus. Okay. All right, and that's what Wheelock shows in his book also. All right, and then again, dental followed by a vowel, potestis, potestis, and then a dental followed by a sibilant dental. So you're going to have possunt. Okay. And lo and behold, we have our chart, and we virtually didn't have to memorize anything except pot. All right, because we already know sum es sumus esti sunt from a couple chapters ago. All right, so that is that. Now, I am not going to rehash all that and torture you for the future and imperfect, but let's just take a look at that real quick. All right, so we have, again, we have our future endings, or our future to be verb, right? Ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, erunt. We just learned this, right? And then we have the imperfect, eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratis, erant. Okay, so you know at the beginning of all these words is a vowel. So we know that a T, a dental followed by a vowel, is totally fine, right? So it's just going to be a straight up combination word, no phonetic changes. So potero, poteris, poterit. Literally, the only thing you're memorizing here is pot, right? Because shortly hereafter, you all will have this memorized, okay? Ero, eris, erit, and so on. You may have it memorized already, all right? So that's that. I hope that makes sense. Pretty straightforward. If you have comments or questions, leave that below in the comments, and I will respond to you as I'm able. Okay, so let's read their note here. For both sum and possum, it is helpful to note the similarity of the future and imperfect endings. Okay, we talked about this already. Remember bo, be, speed, and so on. Bom, ba, spot. And they show that. Okay, that's good. All right, complementary infinitive. This is pretty common sense. If it does seem difficult to you, don't worry. I'll explain it real quick. So, complementary, you're completing an idea. Okay, so so you have finite verbs, and then you have infinite verbs. So a finite verb is something like this, right? And what that means, it has person, right? There we go. So sum is finite because it's I. It's first person. We know exactly there's a definition there, right? There's parameters. It's first person singular. I, sum, right? Ace, also finite. These are all finites because they tell us which person. First person, second person, third person, and is it singular or plural? Those are finite. And infinite, also known as infinitive, it's just action happening. To be or not to be, right? That's the infinitive, to be. I suppose it's also the question that Shakespeare puts forward, but I digress. To be is an infinite because we don't know who we're talking about. It's just to be, okay? Unless you start describing the person with a finite verb. Anyway, okay, I am being redundant here, I think. So, when you have a finite verb, finite, that is a person doing something, there are certain verbs that need to be completed in their idea, okay? They give us a couple examples here. Debeo, this is where we get our word ought, right? You ought, okay, so, or let's go with what they have here. Debeo, I ought, and if I just stop there, stop talking, that's going to be very frustrating to you because you want to know what I ought to do. So to do what? I ought to do something in an infinitive, right? So just as a reminder, infinitive is a second dictionary entry. So you have audeo. This is where we get our word audacity, right? Dare. So I dare to do what? To do something in the infinitive, right? And then the infinitive would be audere, right? I dare This it says I dare to dare, right? All right, let's look at some examples that will help clarify this if there's any confusion. All right, our friends were able. Okay, there's our finite verb. All right, there's our finite verb. Were able. So third person plural. We're talking about the friends. They were able, and if I just stop there, we want to know they were able to do what? Go on, right? So now we need the complementary infinitive to overcome. Okay, so if we were to just isolate to overcome all by itself outside of this sentence, we would not know who was doing it because it's infinite. It's an infinitive, right? It's not addressing a person at all. Here we know the friends are doing it because we have the finite verb were able. Okay, let's look at this in Latin. All right, to overcome many dangers. All right, so amici nostri, all right, friends, our friends, pot erant, okay, so there's third person plural, erant. And then now we have superare, are, you recognize that as an infinitive ending, right? So they were able, this is not the future, this is imperfect. So they were able to overcome or rise above multa pericula. And just as a refresher, this is neutered. This is accusative plural neutered, all right? The ah. So many dangers, and we kind of have some help there. Okay, so let's do another example. My friend is not able to remain. Okay, so amicus meus. Okay, that is the subject, nominative, singular, masculine, and then the verb for that person, that third person singular subject, is also a singular verb, pot est. Third person singular verb, right? And then no, not able, right? But not able to do what? To do something in the complementary infinitive, to remain. Remanere. Okay. All right. This is probably clicking by now, but let's look at the third example. Debes, there's that ought verb, debeo. But this is second person singular. So you ought to conserve, so there's your complementary. You ought to do what? Do tell. You ought to save, preserve, conserve your money, your direct object in the your direct object in the accusative singular feminine, right? Pecuniam, money, tuam, your money, right? So you ought to do something in the complementary infinitive to save money, your money. All right. That's it for this chapter, for this lesson. Okay, so let's take a look at your vocabulary. I think that was pretty straightforward. Let me know what you think, if that was pretty easy, hard, medium, thoughts, questions. But yeah, let's take a look at your vocab here and see if there's anything weird that I should warn you about. All right, so Deus. Okay, Deus is a little weird. And so they give you these weird forms. They provide them, very nice of them, right? So the vocative singular. Normally in the masculine, the vocative, remember, is just a, right? Here, the vocative singular is going to match the nominative singular, deus. Okay, that's not typical with a masculine word, so they're pointing that out to you. All right, nominative plural is just going to be d, right? So it's not doing what you would expect it to do and doing that, right? It's not dei, it's just d. Okay, so anything that's not spelled out for you in the vocab, you can assume it's just going to follow the normal rules of what we've been learning so far. All right. Okay, and then they give you the dative and plural ablative is dis. Again, they're not maintaining that a, the day. It's not deis, it's just dis. Okay, But they spell that out for you. And then dea, dei, and then they tell you that the dative and ablative plural are deabus. And if you remember, the word for daughter does this also, right? It's filiabus, where you would expect filiis for that word, or in this case, you would expect deis, but deabus, deabus. And you can kind of guess, it's just easier to say deabus, right? But yeah, okay. So, discipulus, pretty straightforward, comes in a masculine and feminine form. Note that insidii occurs only in the plural, okay? So they provide the dictionary entry, this is indeed correct. You have the nominative plural feminine there, and then followed by the genitive plural, okay? Means ambush, treachery, okay? Liber, libri, they talk a little bit about this up here. Note your acts or your long marks here. So liber just means book. Li, with that long first I, liber is freedom. Or excuse me, free. It's free. Liber is free. And then liber is just book. So up here, they are changing the quality of the vowel from li to li. E is E. It's the quantity that changes. So you have liber versus liber. Okay. So you have book, and then you have free. All right. Libertas is freedom. Now that I think about it, but liber is free. All right. And then you have tyrannus. Pretty straightforward there. Vitium, vitii. Note as a reminder, when you have that I in Wheelock, we're always going to maintain the double I unless otherwise specified. In real Latin, sometimes they will contract it down to a single I in the case endings, but we will always maintain a double I when there's an I that's part of the root of the word. Okay, so the root of the word is viti, right? So when you get to genitive singular, it's vitii. Okay, but yeah, so just point that out. Let's see here. Graicus, Graika, Graicum. That would be Greek adjective, and then you have the Greek as a noun. Graicus, Graiki. And again, I know this is review, but you know this is an adjective because it has all three genders available. And then here, Graicus, Graiki, you have the nominative us, Graicus, and then Graiki with the genitive, which is a dictionary entry for a noun, and then it's masculine. Okay. All right. Perpetuus. Again, look here, you have a double U. The first U is part of the stem of the word, the root of the word. The second U goes with the us, which is the case ending. And that it maintains a double U. So you have, it's not perpetuus, it's perpetuus, right? Perpetua, perpetuum, okay? So you can apply that principle all the way through the declension. Okay, so yeah, always keep that first U as part of the root stem of the word. All right, plenus, plena, plenum. Note here, again to be redundant, there's only the one U, which is part of the case ending, so it's plain, P-L-A-N, I'm pronouncing it like Latin. Plain is the root of the word, and then you have us, as the case endings, okay? Salvus, salva, salvum, pretty straightforward. All right. Que, they gave you an example here. Que means and, right? Filioque is probably one of the most famous Latin words in the Latin world. It's in the Nicene Creed maintained in Western Christianity. Filioque, that is and from the Son, right? Hotly contested point in the Nicene Creed, but I digress. But the point here is that que goes in the end of the word. So you have fama, que gloria. So fama, gloria, que is how it is read, But in our English understanding, we would understand it as the que going between, like eight. Eight is another word in Latin. It means and, but it just goes between the words. Que, you tack it onto the end of the word being joined to the word prior to it, if that makes sense. Okay, so, all right, ubi, ibi, they talked to you a little bit about this in the chapter. Yeah, you just memorize them. Ubi means where, ibi means there. It's always fun to see critical notes explained, right? Ib and ibid. If you ever read any scholarly work, you'll recognize those. It means there, right? So ubi means where. Ibi means there. These are easily confused. You just practice will unconfuse them for you. All right, nunc means now. Qua re, this is really a compound word, and they break it up for you here. From which affair or which thing, because of which thing, by which thing, by which thing going on and happening, right? An affair, not in a negative sense, but something that's going on, right? Re, that's what that means. So quare just means by which thing or because of which thing, okay? Therefore, wherefore, why. All right. There's never a one-to-one translation from one language into another. And so they give you all these words to give you a roundabout idea of how the Romans would have understood this word in their own ear, right? But yeah. All right, let's go on here. Possum, posse, potui. We know a lot about that word. And then here we have just a basic verb, tolero, tolerare, toleravi, toleratum, right? To bear, to endure, or in our word, to tolerate, right? I'm very glad that Wheelock does not define tolero with tolerate. There's few things more annoying to me than to define a word with that word when going from Latin to English or back and forth, especially. So that he only gives tolerate here as an example of a derivative in English from this word and uses to bear or to endure as the translation. It brings me comfort. So I hope you share that with me. And but that is the lesson for this week in its entirety. Take a look at the exercises. I will have these up on Patreon. If you're not subscribed to Patreon, it's $10 a month, and I give you the answers to all the exercises and all the sententia antiquae. Right? And I go into more depth in explaining those. It's a really good deal. The link for that is in the description if you are interested. And you're of course welcome to share that subscription with family or friends. But take a look at that if you like. If you feel confident doing these exercises on your own and they're making sense so far, more power to you. But yeah, go ahead and work through these. You have some English to Latin down here at the bottom. That's probably the hardest part. Advice on that, when you get to the English to Latin, if you want to look up, if you can't remember that therefore means igitur, and you want to look that up, to be honest with you, I looked it up to double check my memory. But yeah, if you look it up in the English Latin dictionary in the back of this book, this Wheelock book, they will tell you. So you could literally look these words up one by one, going from English to Latin. So let's look up therefore real quick. We'll just do that for fun. So let's go back here. All right, so here we go. So we have English to Latin. We're looking for therefore. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we have therefore, igitur, and they also help us out here and remind us that it's a post-positive, and that means that it comes after a word. It comes after the first word in the sentence, right? So, yeah, but there you go. Therefore, igitur, right? In case you have forgotten. Very handy resource there. Don't be ashamed of using that. But yeah, your English to Latin, that was always the most difficult part for me. But yeah, go ahead and take a look at that and work through those. It's good for you. And again, if you are interested, I will be providing the answers to all these on Patreon. And the link again for that is below. I do not give the translation work for stuff like the extra stuff on the back over here. If I ever have enough demand for it, I might start offering translations for this also. But this stuff at the end of the chapter is really just for fun. So knock yourself out with that if you so desire. And that's it. All right. So our next lesson will be third declension. All right, which is very fun. And but that is lesson 7, chapter 6 for Latin. And my name is Josh, and thanks for tuning in today. And I hope you're doing well with your Latin. I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.